what is Azure Active Directory. Let me just go to Directory Domain Services. Yeah, so this is Active Directory. Okay, so in my case, if you go to Azure Active Directory, you would see the license here, and the Active Directory has 4 licenses, 4 versions mainly. Right, so there are 4 versions of Azure. So in my case, you would see I have Azure AD, a free versions of license free version. Okay, as I said before, this is the main identity system that has 4 license, right? Azure AD has 4 editions. The first one is free. Second one is apps version. The third one is premium 1. The fourth one is premium 2 subscription. So those are some different editions. We need to know in our tenant what is the Azure Active Directory version that we have. The reason is depending on the edition of Azure Active Directory, the set of permissions and not permission actually, but the features are different. So you will get different set of features. So now, for an example, if you look at free edition of Azure Active Directory, and also guys, don't be just confused because free version doesn't mean that you cannot use this for production environment. Okay, so even production, you can use any of these 4 editions. But if you look at depending on the edition of the Azure Active Directory, the set of permissions can be different. Sorry, set of features are different. Okay, the free version, for an example, free version only supports up to 500,000 objects, meaning you can create only objects up to 500,000. Other 3 does not have such a limitation. So there is unlimited objects that you can create. Okay, and also some of the features are not available in free version, but apps version P1 and P2, it can be available. For an example, if you want to configure conditional access policy, only premium 1 and premium 2 conditional policy will be available. Okay, and if you want to access, if you want to configure Azure AD identity, Azure AD ID protection, that is only available in premium 2 subscription. So likewise, there are different features that are available for different editions. When it comes to security, it's really important to know what is your edition of Azure Active Directory. Let's go back to Azure Active Directory again, right? And then number 1 is creating users. I think it's very easy, straightforward. So you can create users. There are a number of options out there as well. So you can create a user here. Even if you use Microsoft 365, Office 365, or Azure, we are pretty much creating users on Azure. So if you're going to create a user, for example, let's say I'm going to creating a user to Niranjan, and then I'm going to say the name is Niranjan, and then the last name is Rasagam, right? So the name is Niranjan Rasagam. And then you can generate a password. I can say it's auto-generated. Or if I click on that, it will show you the temporary password. So then user can change the password next time. And then if you want to add groups to the groups that we created. So there are different kind of groups in Azure. So in Azure, we have Microsoft 365 groups or security groups. So if you want to create it, and also typically when you create a user, user will only get the permissions or the roles as a user. But if you want to, you can click on that and you can assign any role that you would like to. So these are actually identity-based roles. As I said before, maintaining least permission policy, you can provide the permissions. If I, for example, if I select global administrator, that is the highest level of permission in Azure Active Directory identities. Okay, and also you have, let's say, password administrator. So if I assign Niranjan as a password administrator, he can reset passwords of non-administrative users. Okay, and if I go to and assign Niranjan as a user administrator, he will be able to create, delete users and everything related to users and groups, all the aspects he can manage. So you would see password administrator can only reset passwords, but user administrator can manage identities in Azure. So likewise, I can assign these roles, but by default, user will get a user permission. And also you can configure a set of the other components, attributes, right? So user location, the job title, department, company name, and so on and so forth. I can create users. So that is how you are creating a user. And if you want to create bulk users, you can click on bulk creation. You can click on download. It will download the headers with comma separated value. So this is the one. And you can fill the form, this one, the sheet. And then by uploading this one here, you can create multiple. So then you can upload this file. It will create bulk users or multiple users in Azure Active Directory. That is another way of creating Azure. And then when it comes to external users, we will come back to this point later. We will discuss how to, what are the options to create external users. For example, let's say whenever you're working with customers, the clients. So sometimes you want to create you need to provide certain access or access to resources for external users. So how are we going to do that? So some of the organizations, you can create a user and provide user within the organization, and then you can create you can share the user with the external content, external person. But it will be creating user with your domain name. So if you have higher or stronger security policies, you will not be able to do that. Okay, because of that, the next option is inviting users. That is also known as contact it's also known as guest user. So meaning you are inviting user. For example, if you see create user name with domain name, but when you create inviting users, you can use any email address to invite the user. Once user or recipient accepted the invitation, he can access your tenant, and then you can configure the required level of permission for the users. So that is another one. And also it provides you multi-factor authentication if you have a license to do that. For example, if I go to the users, you would see per user multi-factor authentication. Once you access this, you will be able to enable multi-factor authentication. Then obviously users will have to go through a registration process. And once that is completed, uh, every time when you use access, user will be prompt for multi-factor authentication. For that, users can use OTP, one-time password sent to the mobile phone, or they can use authenticator, something like Duo, right? Cisco Duo that we use in Syscap. Okay, so likewise you can use. And also Microsoft 360 Azure provide self-service password reset, which will reduce the cost, where you can configure a password reset. If you go to password reset, here you see self-service password reset, meaning other than contacting help desk to reset the password, users can do it by themselves. For that, we can configure authentication methods for the users. All right, so the authentication methods including security questions, mobile app, email, mobile phones, office phone, and so on and so forth. So then whenever they forgotten the password, they can reset by themselves.